Good evening. Tom Breslin, Dillon Town Manager, here with Tim Westerberg, member of our Town Council, along with Brad Bailey, the newest member of our Town Council. Brad was just appointed to fill a vacancy that was created close to a couple months ago when Eric Jacobson left the council. And Brad has stepped up to fill the position. He has a long history in the town. He's lived there for more than a decade. He has a business there, and he was the chairman of our Planning and Zoning Commission, which now has a vacancy as well. We'll jump right into vacancies. We have Terry King, another of our council persons, has decided to move back to Mississippi. So we still have another vacancy to be filled there, as well as the vacancy that was created when Brad stepped up from planning and zoning. So it'd be, if you folks are interested, please contact us at Town Hall or call my office, 970-262-4302, I'm sorry, and we'll get you in touch with the right folks.
Is there a deadline on those?
We're looking to have applications in for the last council seat by November 10th. Okay. We had one posted, and that had a deadline, and during the interim, Brad filled that, and so we had to repost the position to fill the other one. The P&Z vacancy will be open until filled.
Until we can fill it.
Yes, and I believe, Brad, you're more familiar with the protocols there, but you have a seat that has to be held by a resident, is that correct?
I believe so. You would have to be a resident of Dillon, because there are two people on the P&Z that currently live outside the city limits. We would have to have somebody that's a resident of Dillon. And also to be a town council nominee, you would have to be a member of town also.
So not Dillon Valley and not Summit Cove. And you have to be in the boundaries of Dillon.
That's it.
For both of those positions.
Correct.
Yeah, so it does make it a challenge, but it seems like sooner or later we get good folks. So,
we do.
Well, contact us if you can help us out and you want to be involved in your community. I'll jump back to something that happened in late August. We had a meeting where we discussed the platting of some lots that the town owns around town. And it was actually we had an open house about this before, and multiple work sessions beginning back in January about this process that we were going through. And as we were getting ready to plat them, there was a lot of community involvement at that meeting. So we decided to pull back and re-engage with the community to make sure everybody was clear and get some more community input about moving this process forward.
And you and the staff have been out talking to individuals, have you not, that expressed concern or had questions at that August meeting? You've been out doing some one-on-ones?
Actually, yes. Between myself and Kirsten and Dan Burrows, we have met with, I think, pretty much everyone, every interested party that showed up at that meeting, and spoken, maybe not all of them, but we went and met them directly to see what their concerns were. And we just kind of feel like everybody wants to do it a little differently. We have one way of thinking about replatting these lots. Other people in properties adjacent to those lots think a little differently.
And so, I wonder if most people, I certainly didn't before I got into this position, know what replatting means. Is that is different than rezoning, and it doesn't mean that we've got a building in mind that's ready to go up because we've replatted. You can just briefly tell people what it enables us to do, why we want to do this platting?
Sure. Well, what it does is takes a bunch of property that had not been surveyed and marked and described and recorded at the county, and it gives that property an identity. And with that, we can put that property up for sale, or we can move it into Dora, and we can encourage development, which is called for by all our master documents.
Right.
And as far as the plating and the zoning, the whole area is zoned core area, so it has a certain...
That hasn't changed.
Not at all. It has the certain same rights by use, and Brad's from planning and zoning, and he knows these, would be the same rights by use are attached to that property unless somebody tries to change the zoning, which there's a process for. All this happens in public. We have no deals. We have nobody building anything on any of those lots yet.
And before we do, we would have a whole bunch of public processes that would let people know what the ideas or proposals might be. Town council or the Dura Commission can always say, no, make changes. We don't lose any authority over any of this development by replatting, correct?
That's correct. You lose no authority. You actually, right now, if you recall, we did put several of the lots that the first few we replatted over on Labonte Street behind the college. We did put them out through a Dura process, and we did receive 2 proposals, and we've looked at them now, and the council will be looking at them down the road. And when they review them, they can decide to accept them, reject them, rebid them, do whatever they want. But in order to do anything that wasn't a zoning right in that area, you'd have to either go for rezoning, which isn't happening right now, or you could put in for a planned unit development in which the guidelines can be modified, all subject to approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Town Council.
Excuse me, Tim, I would just like to add that it is unique, at least from my experience, for towns to subdivide off parcels that they own and then put them out there on an open market of some sort for development and or use. So it's kind of got all of us challenged to how to do this without upsetting the neighbors and our constituents, but also doing what we think best, which is to try and develop some of these properties in downtown Dillon for our benefit.
And the council at the October meeting directed the staff to move forward, but we don't have a definite plan as to exactly what the next steps are, or what do you see as the next steps in terms of continuing the conversation about these parcels?
Well, we're
probably phased.
Yes, that phased came up so that we wouldn't do them all at once, which is in a way we phased the ones we did on Labonte, and then we were doing these and this because it was more in the downtown area, so to speak. Right. It drew a little more attention. So we're going to lay out some options, but the idea was to put the land out, and still may work this way, that to put the land out on the market and see what the market forces will bring to town, all subject to approval. And one of the other options is we could assign uses, but we really don't assign uses to parcels. The zoning really covers what uses can be done there. But we could come up with some general ideas that this might be a good restaurant, commercial space. That's kind of an abstract concept, but it's doable. So the leadership team in the town is kicking this around, and we're going to bring some ideas and a timeline
back to the
council.
Right.
So, I don't see this stuff going on, by the time we put that together and then we go through it in a couple of work sessions, we're into next year before this plating comes up again. So, we'll get as much feedback as we can from the community.
Well, it's exciting because with the replatting, we may have some things to look at. Without that, we have nothing to look at except those empty lots or parking lots. So it opens the door for possibilities without backing us into anything that we don't want to get into. So it's exciting to have the possibilities.
Yes, and we've done an in-depth parking study over a year to evaluate what development means and the impact of development on parking, because you can't forget the parking.
Right.
And we're in a solid position parking-wise, and even with development on these parcels, our engineer took a crack at what those things would look like and what the parking.
So we gain some and we lose some.
Right.
And it's almost a wash, if I remember our discussion.
We had a couple of hundred to spare at the time,
Right.
I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'd go back and look at it. But we did. Another opportunity this would present in the town would be that we could give the opportunity to some of the land owners of some of the buildings that are that are older could partner up with the town and put a bigger lot up for sale, and then it would give us a chance to freshen the look of the town.
Yes.
So that'd be a good opportunity for some folks that have property in the town. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to continue to work on it. Certainly, we're not letting it go because everything, all our guiding documents for the past 20 years or so have pointed to this. So I think we will continue to pursue it, and I encourage the public to come to the meetings and tell us what you're thinking and tell us what your ideas are, because we're more than willing to listen.
You mentioned parking a moment ago. Should we move to streets and sales tax?
Sure, we can do that. We did have a discussion at our last meeting regarding a possible extension of the, right now we have a 0.5% sales tax dedicated to road reconstruction that sunsets in 2033. So it would be, we kicked around the idea of removing the sunset provision. And that would allow us, originally it was approved for us to bond up to $20 million. And when you calculate how much you can really borrow and how much you can pay back, really is what the critical thing.
That sunset becomes a problem.
Especially once you get inside of the 20-year bonding thing, it really puts you in right now, the $10 million that we loaned and all the work we did with that, puts us up against where we can pay. So the sunset provision is not really limiting us now, but 10 years down the road, if we're in a much better financial position and the economy continues to grow, we'd be in a very short bonding window, so the payments would be high.
So let me just read off my list here, what we have done over the last several years with that 0.5% sales tax dedicated to road construction. Improvements on Ensign Drive, Corinthian Circle, Gold Run Circle, Lower Tenderfoot, West Buffalo, Three Rivers, and Marina Drive. So we've accomplished a lot with that, $10 million or whatever we've been able to borrow, and would like to continue that. And I believe we're also asking people to allow us a bit more flexibility in terms of using it for construction and maintenance. Am I correct on that?
Yes. That is part B of the question, which if the council decides to go forward with this in January, they have to make a decision.
For the April election.
For the April election. It would be removal of the sunset provision and altering the language to use some of that funding for maintenance down the road, which is a good idea. Because sooner or later, even new things, they have life cycles that are not new anymore, right?
And this would be, issue would come up on the April ballot, correct?
That's correct.
That's why we're discussing this, yeah.
And it is just because people are sensitive to this, and it's an important distinction. This does not create new or additional taxes. This allows us to continue the present sales tax rate.
That's correct.
Correct?
Yes.
So removing the sunset, part A and part B, using it for maintenance as well as construction, no new tax.
Yep.
April, well, if the council decides to move ahead.
Yep.
And preliminarily, we have encouraged that. And our discussion in October, then we would be looking at an April election.
Well, there'll be 3 or 4 council elections and potentially
That's right, we have
this ballot
several
issue.
town council members up for election.
And we're going to have to take a short break now, and we will jump into the cemetery master plan.
Hello, and welcome to this issue of Dillon Dialogue. I'm here with Brad Bailey, fellow town council member.
Hi, Tim.
And Brad, hello, Brad. And Brad was very instrumental on the cemetery planning committee, which is our topic that we want to launch into now. And it's been in the works for a while, and those of us on the council are pretty excited about all the possibilities that are presenting themselves through this new cemetery master plan. As a member of that group that helped develop that, Brad, would you mind walking folks through what this is all about?
I'd be glad to. Thanks, Tim. Here is a graphic of the cemetery as it exists today. And US 6 is down here at the bottom. The existing road actually comes up to the cemetery right here. And we've long had issues with adjacent property and property users, and we were trying to figure a way to highlight this cemetery that originally, of course, came from Lake Dillon many years ago.
So the Denver Water Board
Denver
ceded
Water
that
Board
land to Dillon when they moved the town, moved the cemetery.
Put it up here. And what we've done primarily at this point is a schematic study that creates a new road that, as you're aware, Tim, kind of goes through that lovely meadow that exists up to kind of a pavilion and parking area, and then eventually to the center of the existing cemetery that gives us all kinds of options for future preservation and improvements for the existing cemetery, as well as being able to host annual events, which we do there now, and provide for parking, and additionally also for growth of the cemetery over time.
So where is the existing cemetery?
The existing cemetery is this gray shaded area right here.
And so everything else in a lighter gray here is new. So
Correct.
we will be greatly expanding the capacity of the cemetery through this plan.
It will take quite a lot of time before that gets filled to that extent.
Right.
But this master plan done by CEPRA in Denver is designed for future growth and to also preserve the open spaces that surround the cemetery for our future heirs.
Tell me a little bit more about what's in this. You mentioned a pavilion. What are the features of this area here?
You're aware that there's a Memorial Day presentation every
Sure.
day. There are not every day, every year. There's obviously other ceremonies. There's obviously private burials. This area right here is designed for a future pavilion, should we want to have a more formal area to do some of those things. If somebody wants to use it for a special occasion, I'm sure that would be available. We've always had parking issues, so we can solve that with
So this is
here.
parking all through here.
Parking on the lower side here, Tim, and then more parking up above. We've talked about a future restroom of some sort, handicap access, and also some newer forms of internment, which are burial gardens and those kind of things that we've kind of isolated and placed on this map. And I've got some drawings I'll show you on the back a little bit for different types of internment.
What's in your next map here? Let me move this one out of the way.
Sure.
Now you've got some details.
The master plan that we've finished is strictly that, Tim. It's a master plan. It doesn't go into, the fine details that'll be needed for construction. We will need signage. We will need some imagery. We will need some architecture if we do a pavilion at some point. We would be using some different stone ornaments
Markers.
and burial markers. These are kind of the ideas that our master planners came up with to let us start to think about, and you start to think about, how we envision in the general look of the cemetery, including signage and marking, and kiosks for labeling. We want to make sure that the cemetery has a little more labeling involved.
That's been on the agenda for quite some time.
It has, and it'd be fun for people that even don't have loved ones, Tim, buried in there, just to be able to go up and get a little history of some of the people that are there.
Mm-hmm. Some interesting characters.
I'm sure there are.
There are indeed. So we're looking at possibly having some water available there.
Water
some
would be a long
restrooms.
time out because the infrastructure doesn't exist right now. Any restrooms would probably be in terms of a pit toilet or a high quality pit toilet of that. I do want to mention that Town Council's been very generous in at least placing in the upcoming budget for next year some funding for that road. That is kind of the key parcel.
As I understand, it was on another map. People saw that, but it's
correct.
We have, I think, budgeted. The budget hasn't been approved yet. We have in the preliminary budget, we have $30,000 to really just design that road, which is kind of the first piece of getting this going. And we're talking about many years to accomplish this plan.
Many years. It's a work in progress, but we just felt that the cemetery committee has had many great ideas over the years, but it's difficult to present them and to sort them unless we got a land planner, actually a cemetery land planner, that did a very good job for us this past year and has brought all our own ideas to fruition, we hope.
So it not only expands capacity, if you will, but also really enhances the experience of loved ones who want to spend time
Correct.
in that area.
And the other thing is, Tim, that it's called the Dillon Cemetery, but it's really almost Summit County's
Right.
cemetery, particularly this end of the county. There are many internments there that have been ranching families for the years, and we don't consider it strictly Dillon. We consider it a Summit County.
Right.
And so the imagery and the signage and some of the layouts, we will keep that in that ranching atmosphere and feel to this as we move forward. We will also reach out to the community for forums and show them what we're planning, and they'll see those improvements.
What do you see, Brad, as we already mentioned the design for the new road? What do you see as next steps? Some architectural plans to flesh out? You mentioned that these aren't details. This is
Correct.
a master plan. What do you see unfolding over the next?
I'm going to suggest that the stakeholders in the cemetery, the town, would also like to see some improvements maybe down on US 6 as far as signage and something that would indicate, look what's coming, whether it's a map on a sign of some sort, so that the town and townspeople can get an idea that, oh, look, there is something happening up here soon. The road and the earthwork would be the very first thing. We're not talking pavement or fine Arlington grass landscaping of any sorts.
Right.
But to get the road in place that we can get to the center of the existing cemetery, to see how the access feels, to see if this master plan, which is by no means construction documents, of course,
Right.
if we like the feel of the road and we feel that that spot for the pavilion up above it and the parking below just makes sense as you experience the place.
And the town has, of course, a limited budget, as everybody knows, and we've got a lot of projects, all very exciting. We've got this project, which is going to take many years for us to be able to complete the planning and the funding. And that's also competing for funds with Town Park, which we're very excited about.
Yes.
And the Amphitheater, which we're just beginning to talk about a little bit. No definite plans there, but beginning to talk about some maintenance and upgrades to the Amphitheater, as well as ongoing needs at the marina and elsewhere in town. So it is a long-term project, but
It is, and we're all
It's
aware of
exciting to
that,
get
and we knew that when we went into it.
yep.
And we won't be expecting any more. Again, the road and some of the earthwork would be first, and then some other gentle improvements to the existing cemetery as far as signage and labeling and maybe some pathways and that kind of stuff.
You know, I want to thank some people, in addition to yourself, who've been instrumental in bringing this to fruition.
Yes, there's a
and
long
if you
list
don't mind,
there.
I'm going to use my notes so that I don't leave anybody out. On the Cemetery Planning Committee, in addition to Brad, I'd like to thank Dick Brenner, Linda Polimas, Town Clerk Jan Thomas, who has
Absolutely.
been working on this project since probably she started 17 years ago or
Absolutely.
whenever that was. Dave Krangle, Abe Gold, Pennington Wimbush, and our Public Works Director, Scott O'Brien, who's also put a lot of hours into this effort. So again, a big thanks from the town of Dillon and the people of Dillon, and as you point out, really Summit County, to those folks on the planning committee who have brought us to this point where we can actually see a light at the admittedly long tunnel, but at least a light at the end of the tunnel.
After next spring, we'll see if we can get some road engineering done.
Absolutely. Thanks to all those folks that brought that about.
Thanks, Tim.
Oh, welcome back to the Dillon Dialogue. After that short break, we have a discussion coming up about our amphitheater. So, Brad, why don't you tell us about that?
I'd love to. Thanks, Tom. As you guys are aware, we have the most incredible amphitheater sitting on the shores of Lake Dillon. I'm sure many of you people have been there. And we have been fortunate enough to receive a grant from the Department of Local Affairs, DOLA, in the amount of $25,000 to help us do a master plan over the next winter and upcoming season to see what we can do to improve that facility and to make it more accessible and user-friendly and anything you could possibly think of. We are really excited about being able to have this opportunity to have a world-class planner work with us. And just wanted to let you know that in a little bit here, I'll tell you about some community outreach events where we can have you all come and tell us what you'd like to see.
And when will the, well, I think the architect will be in town
Well, we have the community meeting on the 28th of October, and I believe this show will have aired by then. But so we'll be processing that information, and that's really, as I understand it, not intended to have council or the staff tell us what we think the community needs, but rather to hear from. In fact, let's talk about. We invited several different constituency groups. We invited. And the 28th, meeting on the 28th caters to those different constituencies.
I think there's 3 separate meetings eventually for users and stakeholders and homeowners.
And our business community.
Correct.
And our business community. So we've designed that session of the 28th, and again, we're talking about it. Hasn't happened when we tape. It will have happened when you view this program. But we're talking about looking at that information, keeping our mouths shut, and hearing what those different constituencies have to say about the amphitheater and what they'd like to see happen there.
Yeah. The idea we want to get across to the community is we want to hear what's important to them. What values, the values to the business community are going to be different to the people that that have condos by the lake, and they're going to be different to people that live, say, where you live. You know, so and the user groups that come there, the people that you know, the music people, and you know, potential vendors and things like that. So we like to hear from everybody. And this we want to get. We don't have a plan or a drawing, so we want the architect to have these values in his head before he puts pen to paper.
So these different constituencies will be able to ask questions directly to the architect and make comments to the architect.
Yep, they'll have time to do that. And if you happen to see this show after that and you have a comment, please contact the town and get it to us, because it's never too late to add things. So.
Now, I have my own answer to my question, but I want to hear from the two of you. Why do anything with the amphitheater? Isn't it just fine the way it is?
A lot of things in life are just fine, but change happens. We all know this. And we simply, we don't stand still. The amphitheater doesn't stand still. The entertainment industry doesn't stand still. The user groups, the growth of Dillon, the access points, the traffic patterns, the fireworks for Labor Day that we now do. Things change, and that amphitheater is a golden jewel that I think we've had a master plan. We did some major renovations on that years ago, I know. And if this master plan encourages us to do either major or minor, we would look at them hard. And I can also tell you, 20 years down the road, as the uses change,
we'll need a new master plan.
Well, you will. I won't. I'm fine. We would be looking at doing changes then, because again, the music industry, the locals, the makeup of our town all deem that facility just a very special place. We all know, and
just keeping up, maintaining the infrastructure. I mean, you can't just use things for decades and not put money back into them.
Well,
correct.
You're quite right. It needs a facelift. Yep. I think it's 25 years old, basically.
Is
so,
it really? Okay.
Yeah, so it could use some work, and it could be improved. Then the experience there will then be improved. And as we notice, it's getting more and more crowded at these concerts.
And we
summer.
face competition. We run events at the amphitheater, and we have competition from local towns. It's all good quality competition. So to keep the quality of the entertainment up and the quality of the experience for our townspeople and our guests, obviously, because most of those shows happen in the summertime when we have a lot of in-town visitors and homeowners up here, we need to take steps to keep up.
And I think most would agree that we've upped the quality of the entertainment the last few years.
Immensely.
And that is bringing in, as you already mentioned, the bigger crowds, and we want to continue to capitalize on that. And all of this, we hope, and it does, in fact, generate business elsewhere in town. People stop at the gas station and stop at restaurants and stop at the grocery store and rent hotel rooms and condos, and it generates sales tax and generates business for the business community. So it's a good thing that we are growing at a measured pace and looking, as the original council that had the great wisdom to design this amphitheater 25 years ago, to continue that vision.
It's a spectacular space. We all know that.
It really is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And much like you two previously discussed, you did a master plan for the cemetery.
Correct.
You realize, of course, that you just can't go in and build that cemetery the way that master plan shows that tomorrow. But it gives you a roadmap to things you could phase in over time, and that's kind of responsible planning there, and it's sustainable over the long term. So, we'll get a look at it, and then we'll get an idea what the number is, and then you could say, okay, we can't do that all at once, but we can fix the restrooms, or the stage, or the concession stand, or things like that. So,
and again, we're probably going to be looking at phases. This is not something we're going to do all at once. It'll be many, many years, and phase 1, 2, 3, 4, who knows how many before we
yep.
Get to that 20-year point where it's time to start over again.
I'm sure there'll be a different kind of music out there then that doesn't even exist now. I'm just guessing.
No doubt.
No, that band was started in the 80s. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Guess who? No. Yeah. Community chat. Speaking of, do we have a community chat coming up?
We do in November 9th, actually, at Town Hall in Dillon at 5:30 p.m. This is, I actually don't know if this is an annual thing or a regular timetable.
Quarterly that we have these.
Quarterly?
Started a couple of years ago, or restarted a couple of years ago.
We would just like to see anybody interested in any of these projects that we've talked about tonight or in general. Just come down and chat with myself. I'll be there, and some of the other representatives of town would be there, and just tell us what you think or ask us your questions. We'd love to talk to you. That's November 9th, 5:30 at Town Hall.
Yes, and we do not set an agenda for that meeting, so it's your agenda. You come and tell us what you're thinking, and we can make it part of the process. So
Could be about projects or anything.
Yep.
Any topic that's of concern to somebody who wants to come and chat. Well, summer is snowing outside today.
I know.
So I guess concerts are over. Farmers market is over. Marina is pulling the last of the boats out as we speak. So the summer event season is winding down. What's on our agenda for this fall and winter? What do we got coming up?
Well, actually, the big event, the marketing and event staff are working full on to get next year's summer events ready.
Of course.
And of course, the capital planning and the acquisition of boats and all that, that's all in the process with the budget, so we're getting set for that. The big event we have coming up is in December, and I'll have to refer to my notes, but the Lighting of Dillon is on December 3rd at Dillon Community Church. We'll have Santa Claus, carolers, and then we'll have the Festival of Lights every Friday night thereafter on the 4th. The 3rd is a Thursday, that's the lighting. And then the Festival of Lights and the Bonfire will be on the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, and the 8th of January. And the marketing and events team has amped this up, and they've also collaborated with the Hysterical Society. The Historical Society, and they'll be lighting those buildings adjacent to the church, and we'll have some new features around the park, and there'll be puppet shows, and there'll be arts and crafts on those nights as well available, and I think there's even talk of some soft holiday libations being available as well. So we hope to see you there. We'll certainly put it out on our sign so the folks know that those events are going on.
I didn't know
Friday
about them. I'm thrilled. Thanks for telling me.
And you mentioned Santa Claus, but no reindeer this year. Is that correct?
No, we're not going to have reindeer. We will have, actually, I think Kirsten has gotten some reindeer, but they're metallic and they light up.
A little easier to manage.
Yes, it seems to go better with the PETA folks.
Right.
And I can't say I blame them.
Right.
So,
exciting fall and winter coming up.
yep,
We'll be there.
Looking forward to it. Yep. So this is Happy Halloween to everybody out there, and we'll see you next month.